The stench of fear and death permeated every corner of the Zephyrian processing facility. Commander Jake Morrison pressed himself against the cold metal wall, his enhanced hearing picking up the distant screams that echoed through the corridors. 3 months ago, humanity had made first contact with the Zephyrian collective. 3 months ago, they had learned that the universe was far more cruel than they had ever imagined. The Zephyrians didn't see other species as equals. They saw them as resources. Living, breathing resources to be harvested, processed, and consumed. Their technology was superior, their numbers vast, and their hunger insatiable. When they had arrived at the outer colonies, humanity's defenses had crumbled like paper. Jake's mission was supposed to be reconnaissance. Get in, gather intelligence. Get out. But everything had gone wrong when his infiltration pod had been detected. Now he was trapped in the belly of the beast, surrounded by the screams of dozens of alien species being systematically tortured and prepared for consumption. A sound made him freeze. Footsteps. But not the heavy, mechanical gait of Zephyrian. Guards. These were lighter, more desperate. Jake peered around the corner and saw her. She was humanoid, but clearly alien pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer in the dim light. Elongated limbs that moved with an ethereal grace despite her obvious terror. Her species was unknown to him, but her fear was universal. She stumbled through the corridor, 3 deep gashes across her back, leaking a silver fluid that Jake assumed was blood. Behind her, the familiar sound of Zephyrian pursuit grew louder. Jake made a decision that went against every protocol he'd been taught. He stepped out of the shadows. Here, he whispered urgently, gesturing toward an alcove he discovered earlier. This way. The alien woman's large violet eyes widened as she saw him. For a moment, Jake thought she might run. Then the sound of approaching guards made the decision for both of them. She stumbled toward him, and he guided her into the hidden space just as a patrol of Zephyrians rounded the corner. They waited in silence as the guards passed, their reptilian voices discussing the escaped product in their guttural language. Jake's translation implant worked overtime, and what he heard made his stomach turn. They were debating whether her meat would be more tender if they let her fear marinate a few more hours. When the guards moved on, the alien woman collapsed against the wall. She looked up at Jake with those haunting violet eyes, and when she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "Use me, hurt me, just don't leave me in this alien slaughterhouse," she begged in accented but clear standard. "I've seen what they do. I've heard the screams. Whatever you want from me, it has to be better than that." Jake felt something break inside his chest. This person was so broken by what she'd witnessed that she was offering herself as a slave to a complete stranger rather than face whatever horrors awaited her in the processing chambers. "What's your name?" he asked softly. She blinked, as if the question had caught her off guard. "Lyra. I was Lyra of the Celestial Archives on Andrus Prime." "Lyra, my name is Jake Morrison, commander in the Human Federation fleet, and I'm not going to use you or hurt you." He knelt down to her level, making sure she could see his eyes. "I'm going to get you out of here." "You're human," she whispered, and something like hope flickered in her expression. "I've heard stories. They say humans are different. That they fight for others, not just themselves." "Some of us tried to," Jake said. He pulled out his med kit and began treating her wounds. "How many others are in the processing sectors?" "Hundreds," Lyra replied, wincing as he cleaned her injuries. "Maybe thousands, beings from dozens of worlds. The Zephyrians. They're working their way across this entire spiral arm of the galaxy." Jake's jaw tightened. "Not if I can help it." Over the next several hours, Jake learned Lyra's story. She had been a xenorchaeologist, part of a peaceful research expedition, studying ancient ruins when the Zephyrians had arrived. Her entire team had been captured, and she had watched them be taken away one by one for processing. She had escaped during a power failure, but had nowhere to run in the vast facility. As they moved through the complex's service tunnels, Jake began to formulate a plan. His reconnaissance mission had turned into something far more important. The facility's main computer core contained not just information about Zephyrian operations, but also the locations of their other processing centers throughout the sector. "There's something I need to do," he told Lyra as they reached a junction near the core chamber. "It's dangerous, and I understand if you want to find somewhere to hide until—" "No," Lyra interrupted, her voice stronger than it had been since. "He'd found her. You saved me when you had no reason to. You treated my wounds when you could have left me to die. If there's a chance to stop this nightmare, to save the others still trapped here, I want to help." Jake studied her face and saw something he recognized, the same determination he'd seen in human resistance fighters throughout history. The refusal to give up, even in the face of overwhelming odds. "All right," he said. "Here's what we're going to do." The plan was insane. Jake would need to access the computer core while Lyra created a distraction by triggering alarms in the opposite section of the facility. Once he had the data, they would overload the facility's power core, hopefully crippling the operation and giving the surviving prisoners a chance to escape in the chaos. As they prepared to separate, Lyra caught his arm. "Jake, why? Why risk? Everything for strangers? For someone like me?" Jake thought for a moment, remembering the words of his old commanding officer. "Because if we don't stand up for each other, all of us, regardless of what world we come from, then we're not really alive. We're just surviving." The mission was a success, though barely. Jake retrieved the intelligence while Lyra's diversion drew the guards away. When they overloaded the power core, the resulting explosion tore through 3 levels of the facility. In the chaos that followed, hundreds of prisoners managed to escape to the service bays where emergency pods waited. 6 months later, the intelligence Jake had gathered led to a coordinated strike by the Human Federation and 12 allied species against every Zephyrian processing facility in the sector. The slaughterhouses were shut down and the collective was driven back beyond the outer rim. Lyra now worked alongside Jake in the Federation's Xenological Protection Division, helping to establish early warning systems and rescue protocols for endangered species throughout the galaxy. During quiet moments, Jake sometimes remembered her desperate plea in that dark corridor. She had begged him to use her, to hurt her, anything but leave her to the horrors she had witnessed. Instead, he had offered her something the Zephyrians could never understand: dignity, partnership, and hope. That, Jake believed, was what made humanity different. Not their technology or their weapons, but their refusal to see others as anything less than equals deserving of protection and respect. In a universe full of predators, sometimes the greatest strength was simply choosing to be protectors instead.